2/3 of the delegates at this national convention were selected in presidential primaries. In the 23 primary states, more than 20 million voted for Democratic candidates, a significant increase over 1968. These figures should make us ask ourselves, can we do it again in the big one in November? In rural areas, the new rules also brought out the voters.
See, you didn't go to this, so you don't know. We never have done this before.
Uncommitted team.
I'm sorry, but that's the way.
Many of you came here by way of the convention system. This precinct convention in Texas is, in its way, the prototype of all conventions. You did this from New England to the state of Washington.
Well, I think something very exciting is happening here in Texas, in that for the first time in the history of this state, we have written party rules. And in addition to that, they're very progressive, constructive party rules that give the rank and file people of Texas for the first time in the Democratic Party the chance to really show what their presidential preferences are at the grassroots level in a way that I think will have a big impact, hope it will, on the National Nominating Convention.
1,000. The major difference between conventions was their size and the changing faces of our voters joining us in the selection of a presidential candidate. This is Clinton, Missouri.
Our other secret weapon is right here in this room, because this is the Democratic Party at work. This is a public meeting in Henry County. The door is still open even for latecomers. Any Democrat that walks in here, be he young or old, be he with short hair or long hair, be he male or female, can vote in this open convention. And you know, this is happening all over the state of Missouri and all over the United States. And everybody in this room is going to have a part at what happens in Miami in July. And that last man that is selected is starting right here now. And we'll all feel like we're a part of it, and he is our candidate, he's the people's candidate, and that's why we're going to have victory this November. And thank you very much.
Eleanor Halley has been nominated. Are there
By the time the county convention had been reached in highly populated places like Fairfax County, Virginia, which includes 2 entire congressional districts, the activity often reached a high pitch. But what was happening was that more Americans than ever before in history were becoming experienced in the give and take of open politics. This is a fact to remember.
elected? Venus. A division is called for. We will count the House. Those in favor of Dina Sortland will rise, and the tellers will count the people rise.
60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66. You don't have, she just said that you don't have to do it. As long as your name is down there on the Chisholm thing, that's all we want. All you have to do is go back and sit down and be counted.
Just to make sure.
I just didn't want to lose anything.
Yeah, well, don't get wrong.
Corrections to the ballot.
Okay, come on, let's go. Let's go back.
He's for Shirley Chisholm, like we are.
What is all that?
Okay, thank you.
It's going to happen, I pray.
Okay, thank you. The new rules caused some confusion at all levels, and floor leaders spent a good deal of time trying to give a running account of what was going on, with varying results.
4 people of 15%.
Okay, they only had 4 people.
No, they needed 4 more.
They needed 4. Excuse me.
If you look at the Virginia delegation in '68, and I was a member of that delegation to the National Convention, there were about 5 or 6 women, 5 or 6 blacks, and 5 or 6 young people under 30. And that had nothing to do with the population of Virginia. It was old white men running the show, and they're no longer going to run it anymore. And it's the healthiest thing that's ever happened to the party.
Centerville, hey, 3 alternates. Nobody can hear a word you're saying.
8 delegates.
As most of you are aware, the culminating delegate selection event in many states was the state Democratic Convention. This is where the phrase, balance the delegation, made more history and more late hours than most of you probably care to remember. The Wyoming Convention was a little quieter than most.
As follows: 2 youth, 1 minority, 5 women, and 9 men. We have 3 attorneys, 1 rancher, 2 educators, 1 student, 1 nurse, 2 housewives, a railroad employee, a labor union official, a nurse's aide, and 1 businessman.
Found out she was nominated, and of course we knew she was trying to go, naturally. We pulled every string we could to get her to go.
Now, in this great nationwide reform of our party, what delegates do the reform rules produce? I want you to meet a few chosen by the millions of Democratic voters. Anita Portwood, Wyoming.
Well, I had been studying, you know, about the things that I didn't think were right for just an individual person, you know, just an ordinary person like I am. So I joined the League of Women, and I learned to be a lady and speak when I should, and they just were so good to me in teaching, you know, I mean, just learning and be able to discuss politics in a nice manner, that I decided that, well, I better just try and help my country. And so I joined the Democratic caucus there at our own county. And when it came time to, you know, vote for the national, well, the delegate for the national thing, I just got nerve enough and stood up and nominated myself and closed the nominations.
My name is William McIntosh, and I'm a cattle rancher, in which I operate with my family and my wife and son-in-law and my daughter, and we have a rather extensive operation and not too profitable, but if I were looking for a candidate, I'm, of course, naturally interested in agriculture, and that would be one of my interests, but I think a president has to be a president of all the people, and sometimes he cannot, got to put the whole nation ahead of special interest groups, and it's, as I say, great honor for me to go to Miami.
And also here with us on the floor of this convention hall are Delton L. Houchins of Missouri, Karen Patman of Texas, Richard Moya, also of Texas, Keith Henning, Wyoming, Virginia Cross, also of Wyoming, J. Carlos Lucero, delegate from Colorado, Isom Clemon, president of the Longshoremen in Mobile, and Edna Wade, an alternate delegate from Alabama, and Dolores Fry, an alternate from the state of Virginia.
As I look at the packed agenda here on the podium, I can tell you that getting here was only half the job. Now we must go to work. The hours will be long. The job will be tough. But we must prove to the American people that the Democratic Party should again be entrusted with America's future. I think it comes down to this. Do we have the guts to level with the American people? Only you can answer that question. Nobody else. How do we level? We begin, I believe, with a few simple steps. We cool the excessive political rhetoric. We lighten the purple prose. We do not promise what we know cannot be delivered by man, God, or the Democratic Party. There is not a politician or a churchman or a businessman or a magician in this country who can fulfill all those dazzling promises. But we have lacked the courage to say this. Instead, we have promised something to everybody and then hoped that nobody would keep score. It didn't work. The people can count. They can keep score. And they aren't easily fooled. We have shortchanged them in terms of specific accomplishments: jobs, houses, schools, safe streets, and have lost much of their trust along the way. Now we must stop kidding the American people. We must tell them the truth. I recognize, of course, that this idea runs counter to the whole history of American political talk. But just imagine what it would be like to elect a president who makes only modest, straightforward campaign promises and then seriously goes about fulfilling them. That has never happened. But it could. We cannot abolish poverty with a stroke of the pen, but we can feed hungry children. We cannot end unemployment with a stroke of the pen, but we can stop pursuing those policies in which an administration deliberately encourages the loss of jobs in a misguided effort to slow down inflation. We cannot eliminate racial tension with a stroke of a pen, but we can make the government fair to everyone, even when the people have not yet been touched by fairness in their hearts. Thomas Paine put it this way. He said that not a place on earth might be so happy as America. But it is true today, as it was during the American Revolution, that the road to that happiness has discomfort and sacrifice and sadness along the way. If anybody tells you differently, don't believe him, even if he's a Democrat. There is no easy escape from the burdens that must be assumed by every citizen if we are to have a decent society. Some will say that Americans are tired of making sacrifices. I say the American people are better than that. I say that they will make the sacrifice if they can see the sense of the sacrifice. And when we level with them, that is exactly what we show them. By far, the great majority of you are sitting for the first time as delegates to a national convention. Your neighbors have sent you here, and now some splendid opportunities are going to be thrust upon you. By taking a large enough viewpoint, you have a chance to make the party reforms work. By being honest, direct, and realistic, you have a chance to consciously break the vicious cycle of overpromising and underproducing that has corrupted us all. By keeping your vision of America intact and clear, you have a chance to pass that vision on, not just to the voters in November, but eventually to the people who will follow all of us, to the people who will be the Americans as we begin our third century as a nation. My friends, these are great chances. They are here tonight. They may not come again. I urge you to reach out and take these chances. And if you reach out in that good spirit, you will touch the heart of every American in this land. Thank you.
That was Lawrence O'Brien, 54-year-old national chairman of the Democratic Party and the temporary chairman of this convention, expected to be elected the permanent chairman of the convention. In a few minutes now, his work is going to really begin as he has to use his gavel and the Credentials Committee challenges begin. A test vote on the strength of Senator McGovern in his drive for the presidential nomination of this party. CBS News coverage of the Democratic National Convention will continue in a moment.
You're looking at two fender benders, almost identical, right down to the smallest dent. Will both drivers get the same fast claim handling? Not necessarily. The man on the right is insured with Allstate. He'll just make an appointment at any of Allstate's 600 drive-in claim centers across the country and get his claim handled then and there. Probably get paid right on the spot. Now, the fellow on the left, well, we think you'll find a difference at Allstate.
Introducing Patricia Neal.
Good coffee is one of my passions, especially in the morning. And my husband's has to be just right. I use Maxim because it tastes like percolated coffee. Maxim starts with fresh percolated coffee. Then it's freeze-dried into big chunks of perk coffee. Coffee with character. My husband says Maxim is the best tasting ever, and I never argue with him, especially when he's right.
Bobby's teacher.
Oh?
She's coming right over with work he missed.
She's what? Help pick up this mess. I'll dust with Pledge.
It smells great, like fresh lemons.
It's Lemon Pledge. Cleans great, too, and fast.
Hey, a real wax shine. You know, she'll think you've been waxing all day.
With Lemon Pledge, all I did was dust.
It's beautiful.
Hey, beautiful. Want to answer the door?
Pledge, lemon or regular.
There's always a great crop of legs in this country. But legs, like any beautiful growing thing, need moisture. When women shave, they take moisture away. They should use this, Crazy Legs. It's a crazy gel that turns into a foam and leaves a moisturizer behind. Not just for a great shave, but for great skin. Use Crazy Legs. It'll be the best year for legs ever. Crazy.
CBS News coverage of the Democratic National Convention will continue after this pause for station identification. This is CBS. CBS News coverage of Campaign 72, the election year, the Democratic National Convention. Tonight, the opening session. This broadcast is sponsored by the Ford Motor Company. They listen better and they'd like to hear from you. Reporting from CBS News Convention headquarters in Miami Beach, here is correspondent Walter Cronkite.
Larry O'Brien, the temporary chairman, has just introduced Mrs. Patricia Harris. She's 49 years old, a former ambassador to Luxembourg, alternate delegate to the United Nations, a dean of the Howard University Law School, and here she's the chairman of the Credentials Committee, will report the Credentials Committee's findings in their hearings, and then the fight over credentials, which will give a clue as to whether Senator McGovern is on his way to a first ballot nomination. Let's listen to the floor proceedings.
This is the moment. Reform is never easy. Significant reform is difficult indeed. But revolutionary reform, the kind of reform on which we embarked, carried out peacefully and constructively, is the hardest of all to achieve. But we are on the threshold of just such an achievement, and we shall prevail. The 1968 Democratic National Convention caused to be established the Commission on Party Structure and Delegate Selection, which, in the ensuing 4 years, set forth national party standards, guidelines for the selection of delegates and alternates to this convention. In February of this year, the selection process began. Added to the usual contest between and among presidential candidates was the determination of members of the Democratic Party to ensure that delegates and alternates to this convention would be chosen in accordance with the new guidelines, and that these delegates and alternates would be a representative cross-section of this party. The result of this determination was that concerned Democrats became a new kind of poll watcher. Persons wishing to ensure the full, meaningful, and timely participation of Democrats in the delegate selection process watched closely as delegates were elected around the country. Acting under rules promulgated by the party's Rules Commission, concerned Democrats moved to challenge delegate and alternate selections that, in their view, did not conform to the guidelines. Beginning with the first delegate selection in Arizona, challenges were filed with the Credentials Committee, setting forth grounds of the challengers' belief that delegates had not been properly selected. 82 challenges were filed to 1,289 delegates in 31 states and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. Following the Rules Commission procedures, I appointed a panel of hearing officers chaired by the Honorable Burke Marshall, Deputy Dean of the Yale Law School, to hear these 82 challenges. These distinguished hearing officers took testimony from challengers and challenged delegations in the states in which the challenges arose. Then they filed their findings of fact with the Credentials Committee, providing for the first time in American political history an adequate factual record upon which to decide credentials disputes. Among the men and women who served as hearing officers were 4 law school deans, 3 former assistant attorneys general, a former United States attorney, many law professors, and many practicing attorneys.
Mrs. Harris, detailing the background of these credentials hearings, should be reported now that the CBS News survey of delegates indicates that Senator McGovern has the votes to win these credential fights, particularly the important California fight, no matter what rulings come from the chair as to what constitutes a majority. The CBS News survey indicates 1,524 delegates would vote for McGovern on the California fight, 1,170 against McGovern, 171 undecided, a clear majority. And just a moment ago, Morton Dean was told by Joe Sorrell, Humphrey's manager of the California fight, that the Humphrey organization now believes that McGovern does have that bare but clear majority, but that they're still fighting to try to get some of those votes back before it comes to a vote on this convention floor.
Careful consideration to the hearing officers' reports and to the arguments before them. This body which I address, this convention, is the result of Credentials Committee deliberations. We have delivered to the Secretary the temporary roll of the convention, and you are they. Reasonable men may disagree with our actions, and I have heard rumors that there is some disagreement. But no one can deny that every party, challenger and challenged, was treated with courtesy and respect by our committee. Nor can it be claimed that any member of our committee lacked a full and fair opportunity to express herself or himself or to vote his or her conviction. That process was in the highest democratic tradition, and from it has come our report with the accompanying minority reports. Our report has been examined in the courts and in the press. Now it must be examined by you, the convention, for we have acted only as your agent. Since our party first met in convention in 1832, we have had credentials contests, and we have always resolved them. Because in 1972, our reform is unprecedented in American political history, our credentials contests are likewise unprecedented, both in number and in complexity. I ask you now to act responsibly, to act wisely, to resolve these contests in a spirit both of reform and of party unity. If we can meet our responsibility in acting on these contests, a newly strengthened Democratic Party will go forward to carry on the historic mission of this party. That mission is, as it has always been, reform. Reform of America's political and social institutions in the name of justice for all our people. As we reform ourselves wisely and constructively, so we shall wisely and constructively reform this nation. If we fail, we fail America, for there is no other party in this land capable and willing to do the work of reform. Tonight, you act not just for yourselves or for your party, but for your country. As we move into the specifics of this report, I urge you, do your job well, for much rests upon what you decide here. You have received a copy of the report of the Credentials Committee. I would first like to call your attention to some matters of importance as we look to the consideration of matters before us. We're about to go into a consideration of the Credentials Committee report, and I think it would be very helpful if we had a little order.
Mrs. Harris can be a very tough chairwoman. She really gavelled the Credentials Committee through its hearings in Washington 2 weeks ago. Like a very tough school teacher, she pointed that gavel out at out into the group, and there are only 150 members of the Credentials Committee, ordered non-delegates off the floor, ordered the representatives of the candidates, particularly McGovern and Humphrey people, off the floor rather peremptorily, called them up front when they refused to leave immediately and bawled them out. She can wield a mean gavel.
Will the sergeants at arms please be hopeful in asking the delegates to be seated? You're simply prolonging this evening into I don't know what time.
Incidentally, the convention schedule is already about an hour and 15 minutes behind the plan for this evening.
Before I wind up
and
podium, I've already put a couple of dents in it, I guess.
They had suggested earlier that
they
might keep the convention in session until they finish all the Credentials Committee hearings. At one time, it was estimated that could be as long as 20 hours. But of the 14 credential fights scheduled for tonight, credential challenges at any rate, 5 or 6 already have been resolved. There won't be any long debate on those. There won't be long debate on any of them. The debate is scheduled to be, under the rules, only 20 minutes, 10 minutes to a side on each credentials challenge, unless, of course, the convention by a 2/3 vote sets aside the rule and agrees to a longer period of time, or the two sides agree to a longer period of time with the assent of the temporary chairman. But at any rate, it's going to be a very late night session.
And the left aisle, New Hampshire, Arizona, down that aisle. Would you please be seated? My guess would be that 80 to 90% of the delegates are attentive and interested in the proceedings. So let me just direct my request once more to 10% of you. Please be seated.
The first contest to be brought up tonight on the list is that of South Carolina. The contested challenges are being brought up in the order in which the states were certified. South Carolina will be first.
Report listed for the state of Missouri, and on page 62, a minority report listed for the state of Rhode Island, minority report number 1. These so-called minority reports were ruled out of order by me during the Credentials Committee meeting because they were signed by members of the majority. These have been included for your information since not all members of the committee agreed with my ruling. However, I call to your attention and inform you now that these are not minority reports, are not before this convention for action, and no vote will be taken upon them. The Missouri Minority Report and the Rhode Island Minority Report number 1 are out of order and will not be placed before this body. In addition, you have a little news that'll shorten the evening a little bit. In addition, minority reports have been withdrawn. Minority reports have been withdrawn in the states of Hawaii, Kentucky, and Virginia. We will now proceed to a discussion of the report of the Credentials Committee. No challenges were filed against 20 states and territories listed on page 1 of our report. Challenges against the delegations of 18 states were withdrawn or compromised. Those are listed on pages 2 to 19 of our report. We will now proceed to a consideration of minority reports to the majority report of the Credentials Committee.
The first challenge to be brought up here will be that of South Carolina. It's a fairly minor one in the total complex here tonight. It's a challenge to seat 7 women to increase the delegation to get at least 7 more women onto the delegation. It wouldn't make any difference in the balance between the McGovern or the Stop McGovern forces, and is expected to go reasonably smoothly unless there is some parliamentary challenge that would have an effect on the entire series of challenges, including the California case. Meanwhile, however, with our CBS News poll of delegates indicating that McGovern is over the top on the California delegation fight, and with a similar report coming from the Humphrey forces themselves that they are considerably discouraged and don't believe they've got the votes to do it. Let's take a look down on the floor quickly and see what is the standing just at the moment. Mike Wallace is with Max Kampelman, a key senior advisor to Mr. Humphrey, Senator Humphrey. Mike?
That's my impression.
With Max ruling.
Yes, sir.
Forgive me for just a moment. The CBS computer now, and I know that you don't think it's the gospel, but nonetheless, the CBS computer suggests that McGovern now has 1,524 votes in this convention on the California challenge. And Mr. Sorrell, who is your coordinator, your chief out in California, acknowledges that it looks as though the battle is lost. You are down here with a smile on your face.
Well, you know why I'm smiling, Mike? Because when you said the CBS computer, I reminded myself that the CBS computer nominated Ed Muskie a few months ago for president. So that's why I have a smile on my face.
Well, then you believe that, obviously, you are down here, for instance, you were down here in the Colorado delegation. You just believe that Sorrell, your own man out in California, is wrong, as well as the CBS computer.
Now, let me say this. It is my conviction, after having been on the floor and talked to many delegates, that a great many delegates haven't made up their minds. They want to do what's right. They're not sure what's right. It's a complicated. They'll listen to the debate, they'll listen to the arguments, and then they'll make up their minds. Joe is a wonderful fellow. He happens to be a pessimist.
Joe Sorrell.
Joe Sorrell. So he's a pessimist, so he gets discouraged. You talk to another one of our fellows, and they're optimists, so they're encouraged. None of these projections count in my opinion, Mike. In a few hours we'll know. I'm convinced that a great many of the delegates, enough to spell the difference, have not made up their minds.
Max Kampelman, the optimist, key strategist for Hubert Humphrey. Walter?
Dan Rather also, Mike, a little while ago was reporting considerable discouragement among Humphrey and Muskie people on the floor of the convention hall, that they also, in their counts, felt that the Stop McGovern movement didn't have the votes to stop McGovern, at least on the California credentials fight. It should be pointed out again, for those who might have tuned in late, that if the credentials fight is won by the McGovern forces, that means he gets 151 more votes on the floor of the convention for the presidential nomination. And although many of the votes that may put him over in the California fight will not be with him on the actual nomination, that 151 that he will get will be enough to put him over the top by nearly all estimates in a first ballot nomination. John Hart is down there on the floor with San Francisco's Mayor Joseph Alioto and another Humphrey man, Humphrey advisor Joseph Sorrell, who a little while ago we quoted as saying that they didn't think they had the votes. John?
Yes, Walter, this is Joe Sorrell in the striped T-shirt, who said he didn't have a chance to change since this morning because he's been working so hard. Joe, you've just been described as a pessimist by Max Kampelman because you were reported as saying you didn't believe that you had the votes to stop McGovern in California.
No, I don't know. I don't have the slightest idea what the votes are in California.
I say I'm always a pessimist. That way, so when I've been asked what's happening, I don't know. But I think at the present time, things are picking up very well. As you probably
How can you tell that?
Well, I think you've probably noticed we've moved our delegates out into the other delegations to talk to the people whom we've learned are undecided and uncommitted at the present time.
You were quoted as saying that you thought that you really didn't have enough to stop McGovern, but you're going to hang in until the end anyway. Is that more accurate, do you think?
No, I think that, it sounds a little confusing. I think that what we've said is that we're going to do our best on this floor fight, and we're certainly very hopeful of pulling it out. We've moved into the delegations very well. We've explained to people what the issues are in the California situation, which unfortunately they have not known. Hopefully the debate here this evening will clarify it.
Gene Wyman. Here, Gene, can I talk to you a minute?
Well, yes, certainly.
And Mayor Alioto. Now, we have this poll of the delegates that CBS has been doing, and it has come to 1,524, as you've heard.
Well, I really don't think anybody can take an accurate poll at this time. I've heard a number of counts, and I honestly believe the thing at the moment is in the laps of the gods. And as I told you, they aren't talking to us at the moment.
But John, I think that it's very, very soft, and there's shifts going on all over. I understand that we just picked up 6
soft
more.
For you or soft for McGovern?
For everybody. I think that the delegates basically are against the unit rule. No question about it. The only thing that troubles them is the McGovern slogan, are we changing the rules after the game? And when we point out to them that Senator McGovern joined Humphrey in trying to change the rules before the game by going to court in April in California, that turns a lot of votes around.
Well, Gene, what about the count, though, tonight?
I think it's very, very close. It's going to be a few votes either way. I think that maybe you've been wrong on polls, and other people have been wrong on polls before as Humphrey is concerned. I think the count is probably wrong now. But, John, it's very close. I don't know.
Okay, now, Walter, I want to move back to Roz Wyman, Mrs. Gene Wyman, who had something interesting to say a few minutes ago about the speech by the chairman.
Well, John, what I felt was in the past in Democratic conventions, our real concern has been about electing office holders. And normally, I think the spot that Larry had up there, you'd give to a governor maybe who's got some trouble in a race, or a senator who's coming up, or a congressman. I think party conventions are to help office holders get reelected as well. And I just found the role a little strange that Larry was playing up there, taking, I thought, the spot from maybe a good Democrat who needs some help on election and can use all his television time.
Would that have been, would you have been a little more acceptable to that long speech if Mr. O'Brien's ruling had been a little larger majority?
No, maybe I've been in the party too long. I do feel we have to elect party officials to office. I mean, that's the name of the game. And Democratic Party doesn't mean much if we don't elect people. And I do feel that Larry O'Brien's ruling is unfair, but I think that's immaterial to the issue that I spoke to you about earlier.
Okay, thank you very much, Roz Wyman. Walter?
What happened?
So I think through those interviews, we do get the idea, John and Mike and the others, that there is some depression on the Stop McGovern side, and that they perhaps secretly agree that the vote looks very strong for McGovern in the California credentials fight. However, we'll be determining that once and for all here in the next couple of hours when they get to California. The first of the credentials challenges is before the House right now. That is, the sides are being presented the minority report, which wishes to seat 7 women in the South Carolina delegation on the claim that the delegation is not, it does not give women enough representation, and under the new rules of the Democratic Party, women are supposed to have a representation as nearly proportionate as possible to their percentage of the total population of a state. The minority report claims that they don't have that, and it's going to be coming to a vote very shortly. Roger Mudd is down with Stan Bregman on the floor. He's another Humphrey advisor. Let's get another Humphrey opinion of how the California delegate fight's going. Roger?
Mr. Bregman, the question is, a few moments ago, CBS reported, you perhaps have heard, that McGovern has now, according to my count, 1522, no matter what issue and how you cut it. Does that sound right to you?
No, it does not.
Why not?
because I just don't think he has 1522 on any issue.
Well, people in the Humphrey organization are already saying that you're down the drain on California, and what you're doing is scrambling to get what you lost tonight back by Wednesday night.
Well, we haven't conceded California yet. That's no. We're still going to be in there fighting to uphold the majority report.
But a minute ago, I was watching you lobbying an Ohio delegate, Ted Barrett from Cincinnati, who's going to vote against you apparently on credentials.
That's correct.
You couldn't bring him back. Are you losing others in Ohio?
We've lost a few in places, but I think we got a little bit of a cushion to lose a few.
It was awful close from the beginning, Stan. You can't lose any, can you?
Well, we don't like to lose any.
Well, now, why did you lose it?
Well, Ted Barry disagreed with my legal analysis of it. He's a lawyer, I'm a lawyer, and lawyers sometimes disagree.
Is Ohio an isolated, or you indicated you're getting some loss in other states?
Well, there are losses in various states, but we're also picking up in a couple states, too, of people that aren't our voters.
How do you account for a loss like that when the winner-take-all does seem to be against reform guidelines?
Well, I tell you, I think one of the problems is that we haven't had enough time to really be able to argue the real legal analysis of the whole question. Unfortunately, the past week...
It's hard to argue in the aisles, isn't it?
It's hard to argue in the aisles, and unfortunately last week we had to first worry about court decisions, and then yesterday we got some outrageous rulings from the chair here, which we had to spend all of our time arguing those to no avail. And we've had all kinds of obstacles put in our way.
Do you think the chair has recognized what might be the inevitability of a McGovern nomination and is going along with it?
Well, I would hate to believe that the chair is making rulings on rules based on who they think might be the nominee of the party. That certainly isn't the way the chair is supposed to operate. They're supposed to operate in an impartial way. They're supposed to operate in calling the rules the way they're written.
I know you'd hate to believe that, but do you believe it?
I'm not going to question anybody's motives.
All right. Well, you apparently it's razor thin on California.
Yes, I'll agree to that. It's going to be tight.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Very much. Yes, Walter. That was, as you said, Stan Bregman. He was the architect, as you know, of the successful Humphrey challenge in the Credentials Committee fight. Surprised everybody so much. But now he appears to be on the losing end down here. Walter?
Roger, on this particular thing that's right now being debated, the South Carolina Minority Report, do you get any sense that the McGovern people are very active out there in supporting the Minority Report? We gather that that's their position, but are they working very hard on it?
They had decided earlier in the evening just to go for broke and just lunge for the jugular right off the bat, make South Carolina the first test, file notice that they would support the minority report, just to demonstrate that they've got the muscle and the shoulders and the forearms and everything they need to get the nomination through. If they were to dilly-dally and wait until California to test themselves, that, as Bregman says, would give them more time to work the aisles and to lobby and to explain a very complicated situation.
A little earlier, Governor John West, South Carolina, told us that he was pretty unhappy, I gather, about the McGovern supporting the Minority Report from down there.
West, I overheard West making an offer to the parliamentarian, Mr. O'Hara, which sounded like a pretty good offer, which was, if you tell us which 7 men are not eligible to vote, we won't let them vote, but let the rest of the men vote. O'Hara said no. West then said, if I strike 7 men from the delegation and replace them with 7 women, will you take that? And O'Hara said no. So apparently, as much as people say that the chair is
Roger.
absolutely fair, I think...
Roger, I think that all that cheering is kind of drowning you out, and the cheering is for Representative Bella Abzug of New York, who, of course, is a prominent member of the National Women's Caucus. And this is a women's issue here from South Carolina to seat more women, and she's going to have a word to say.
I want to make a very special appeal to you on this, the first action of this convention. The seating of more women in this delegation in no way represents a change in presidential preference. It no way reduces the number of minorities, nor does it seek to replace men. We will share equally with men the votes, and the remedy is provided here. If our Democratic Party at this convention is to stand behind the nominee, whoever he or she may be, it must stand behind the nominee with the full strength of the women in this country in order to defeat President Nixon. Our party can only be united, and we can only defeat President Nixon and his policies of war and deprivation of the people in this country if you support this as your first challenge, the right of equal participation of women together with youth, minorities, and those who are here. Thank you very much.
One might wonder why the McGovern forces have decided to risk alienating Governor West and other political leaders in South Carolina by backing a challenge that is not going to net them any more votes. And the answer may be found in the fact that what they are doing is backing a women's issue. There have been some criticism that there weren't women in the high councils of the McGovern staff, a matter which is hotly disputed by some of the McGovern people, but the women didn't care much for that in the National Women's Caucus, and maybe they're getting even in this fashion. Mike Wallace is with Mrs. George McGovern, who has just come to the hall after watching the earlier proceedings with her husband at the hotel. Mike?
Mrs. McGovern, welcome to the Democratic Convention. What you been doing for the past 3 or 4 hours?
Well, I've been going to receptions and then spending the rest of the time with my family late evening.
Walter just said that he understood that you were at home with your husband watching the convention at home.
Well, I had intended to do that, and then as I was watching on television, I decided that it seemed so exciting down here, I wanted to be a part of it.
I was talking to Mrs. Humphrey about an hour and a half ago, and of course the two of you are such good old friends. And she said that she really hadn't talked to you since California.
No, we have not. Our paths have not crossed since then.
Is it a very difficult business for Eleanor McGovern, Muriel Humphrey, whose husbands are in competition?
Well, it has been for me. Muriel and I have not discussed this, but I think it's been as difficult for her as for me. I do think, though, when it's all over, that we can renew our friendship.
Now, our count at this moment has the McGovern forces at 1,524 on the California challenge. Does that tally with what you learned on the way down here, or did you stop by the...
I didn't stop to get any latest figure at all, so I can't tell you.
I wonder, Mrs. McGovern, if you'd tell us who else has just arrived in this box with you.
Well, it's my family. I have my son-in-law, Jim Rowan, who is here. My daughter, Ann Meade, who is here, and her husband, Wilbur Meade.
Wait just a second. Wilbur Meade seems to have a bruise over his eye. Did his wife hit him, or was that a Humphrey partisan?
I think I'd better let him explain.
What happened to you?
I fell against the table.
Okay. Sounds like a reasonable story.
Believe it or not, it's really true. And my other daughter, Susan Rowan. And then I have another box someplace else of family.
Are you going to stay here tonight until the bitter end? It may be a long night.
Well, I'm going to stay through California and Chicago, Illinois challenges anyway, as long as I can.
Those are the two crucial ones as far as you people are concerned. Now, obviously, there's no compromise that you've wanted on California. What is the senators, in your view, about Illinois? Would you just as soon see Richard Daley, that part of the delegation, seated here in the interest of party unity?
Well, I feel that both sides should have compromised because neither side is in full compliance. And I think that's a situation that does call for a compromise.
So if the McGovern folks are seated in California, it's all right with you if the Daley people are seated in Illinois?
Well, I would like to see the Daley people and the challengers somehow or other compromise. I don't know as they can. I guess we were beyond that point right now. I wish they had done it before. We certainly have to abide by the decision of the convention.
Thank you, Mrs. McGovern.
You're welcome.
Walter?
We're going to be back in just a moment with more coverage of the Democratic National Convention.
Every year, 10 million enthusiastic people make the second biggest purchase of their life, a new car. Now, if you're one of them, Ford Motor Company has written a book. The book doesn't claim to make car buying a snap, but it can help you come up with a car that really fits your needs. Now, is the book biased because Ford wrote it? The answer is yes. For that reason, the book is purposely divided into two sections. The first is about cars in general. The second, that's the biased part. It is devoted to Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury automobiles. Now, Ford Motor Company wrote this book because they listen better, and they're working hard to establish that fact as a real point of difference with their competitors. They figure if you become a smarter car buyer, they'll get their share of the business, and then some. The name of the book is Car Buying Made Easier. And for your free copy, write Ford Motor Company Listens, the American Road, Dearborn, Michigan. They listen better, and they'd like to hear from you.
To prove a point, I'm about to shave without using any water. Nothing to make my beard wet and soft, but this. Rise. I'm actually getting a clean shave. The reason? The moisture in Rise. Slowly, Rise seeps moisture into your beard and holds it there for as long as it takes you to shave. Now, if I can get a shave like this using Rise with no water, imagine what you can do using Rise with water.
Mom, you do so many things with your job and the house, and you always have time for me and Dad. You're incredible.
I take care of myself. I eat right, get my rest, exercise, and to make sure I get enough iron and vitamins, I take Geritol every morning.
I know.
It's time you started taking it, too.
Geritol, more than twice the iron of ordinary supplements, plus 7 vitamins. Take care of yourself. Take Geritol.
Mom, I hope I look as good as you do when I grow up.
On the floor of the convention now, the South Carolina challenge is still being debated. To review it for you, this is the first of the now 9 challenges that are to be heard on the floor of the convention this evening, a process that could take us into the late hours tomorrow morning. One of the challenges, that of California, for 151 delegates that could make the difference in whether Senator McGovern goes over the top for her first ballot nomination when that event comes on Wednesday or Thursday night. And therefore, it obviously is quite crucial. As we have been reporting here, our CBS estimate now, not based on a poll of the delegates, but on our reports from correspondents very close to all of the delegations, is that Senator McGovern's forces do have the votes to succeed in the California challenge and to seat their 151 delegates, enough to put him over the top. What they're debating right now, the South Carolina challenge, is a minor one, as are most of the rest of the challenges. Only California and Illinois are really of major national interest. The Illinois challenge, because that's the one that involves Mayor Daley of Chicago and 58 of his delegates. They were ruled off of this convention, and other delegates were put onto the convention floor, and they'll be challenging to get back tonight. The South Carolina fight is to increase the number of women on the South Carolina delegation from 7 to 16. It wouldn't affect the split between McGovern and the other candidates from South Carolina. For the McGovern view of tonight's fights, Dan Shore is on the podium and perhaps can give us a little bit of a clue. Dan?
Well, just let me give you a little bit of news more than a clue, Walter. It is true, as you said, that Senator McGovern thinks he has the votes to win on California. He is worried, however, about something other than having the votes. His top man, Frank Mankiewicz, has just been at the podium. Buttonhole Joseph Califano, the Democratic Committee's counsel, took him downstairs next to the orange juice stand and had a very worried talk with him. I'll tell you what the talk was about. The McGovern people have word that on this challenge, South Carolina, an attempt will be made to challenge not only the 25 who are involved in the attempt to seat some more women, but the 7 who are not involved in the challenge. If that were to succeed, and if those 7 were to be prevented from voting, it would set a precedent for barring the 120 from California, McGovern delegates, from voting when the California question comes up. That is an issue right now, and Califano told me that he was not able to give full satisfaction to Mankiewicz because he doesn't see a way out of preventing that kind of challenge. So just to recapitulate very briefly, there are 7 South Carolina delegates not involved in this challenge. An effort will be made by the anti-McGovern coalition to keep them from voting on the South Carolina challenge, thus to set the stage for doing the same thing to the 120 remaining McGovern delegates in California. That's it, Walter.
Now, Dan, what we get to is a proposition here where we're likely to have a test vote on the California test vote. The test vote will be on the South Carolina matter coming up very shortly to a vote of the entire convention. And we might just recount that situation again. There are a total of 32 people in the South Carolina delegation. 7 of those are women. The challenge is to put 9 more women on the delegation so that the delegation will have a proportionate number of women in relation to the number of women in the state of South Carolina. The 7 women, therefore, are not under challenge. It is the 25 men who are under challenge. They don't want to throw any of them off. They just want to reduce their votes from 1 to a portion of 1 and put on 9 more women to share those votes. And there's the vote.
Those opposed say no. For what purpose does the delegate from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, I ask for a roll call.
The one on the right.
Those in favor of taking this vote by roll call will rise. I'm not going to be looking at anyone in any aisle.
I'd say that's a sufficient number. A sufficient number having arisen, a roll call is ordered.
A sufficient number having arisen, a roll call is ordered. The question is on agreeing on the minority report. A vote of aye is a vote in favor of the minority report. A vote of no is a vote against the minority report. The clerk will call the roll.
This is for the minority report that would seat some extra women on the South Carolina delegation. An aye vote is a McGovern vote.
California. California, Mr. Chairman, is in the process of holding this multi-delegation that the Credentials Committee has given us.
California passes. South Carolina, 9.
Madam Secretary.
Mrs. Sylvester. Barbara.
National Committeewoman, South Carolina.
Barbara Sylvester is trying to speak to this group.
Standing with me is my Vice Chairwoman, Mrs. Alice Senior, and I would like to report to this convention the women of the South Carolina Democratic Party who have helped make our state the leader in the New South and proudly represented by our 32-member delegation. The women of this delegation unanimously cast 9 votes in favor of seating the full delegation as certified and approved by the Credentials Committee. The minority report we vote no on.
South Carolina votes no. 9 votes no. Ohio.
No.
Chairman Frank King.
Of Ohio passes for now.
Ohio passes for the moment. Canal Zone. Canal Zone.
Canal Zone has 1 1/2 votes for, 1 1/2 votes against.
The Canal Zone's vote is 1 1/2 vote for and 1 1/2 vote no. Utah.
Utah votes 10 yes, 8 no, and 1 absent.
Just a second. Utah votes. Will you give me that again?
10 yes,
10
8 no, and 1 absent.
1 absent and 8 no?
Right.
Correct. Once again, Utah votes 10 yes, 8 no, and 1 absent. Delaware. On this first roll call, I'm having a hard time placing some of these delegations.
Delaware casts 7.15 no, 5.85 yes.
Just 1 second now. Let's be sure we have this correct. Delaware votes 5 yes.
No, we have fractional votes in Delaware.
This is an indication of some of the problems in taking a roll call here, these fractional votes. That means there are more delegates than there are votes assigned to the delegation, and they have had to split them up by these fractions. Also, you'll note that the roll call is not in alphabetical order. That's part of the new reforms, too. They drew lots as to the order of the votes, and this will be the order throughout all of the voting at this convention.
Delaware casts 5.85 yes and no 7.15, which makes the total of their 13 votes they're entitled to. At least can add up to 13. Rhode Island.
Madam Chairman, Rhode Island casts 20 votes yes, 2 votes no.
Rhode Island's vote is 20 votes yes, 2 no. Texas.
Mr. Chairman, the Texas delegation is still being polled, and we're not ready with the final vote.
Texas passes at the moment. West Virginia.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir.
West Virginia cast 13 votes yes, 22 votes no.
West Virginia cast 13 votes yes, 22 no. South Dakota.
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes, sir.
South Dakota votes 17 votes for the minority report.
A yes vote, a vote for the minority report, is a vote for the pro-McGovern forces, in a sense here. McGovern forces went through the hall and tried to drum up votes for the minority report.
Madam Chairman, yes, Kansas votes 18 votes no, 17 votes yes.
The Kansas vote, 17 yes, 18
That is some indication
no.
of Kansas' strength for McGovern. That's 5 more votes than was counted for him in Kansas. Of course, that doesn't mean they'll vote that way when it comes to the presidential balloting, but it's an indicator.
New York cast 269 votes for, 9 votes against.
So of New York's 12 uncommitted votes, 3 of them went over to the McGovern side on this vote.
269 yes, 9 no. Virginia.
Virginia passes.
Virginia passes. Wyoming.
Wyoming casts 2.2 aye votes, 8.8 no votes.
The Wyoming vote is 2.2 yes, 8.8 no. Arkansas.
Arkansas has not completed its poll. We've passed for the time being, but we can complete the poll.
Passes at the time. Indiana.
Indiana votes 18 for, 58 against.
The Indiana vote, 18 yes, 58 no. Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico votes 6.5 yes, 1/2 no.
The Puerto Rico vote, 6 1/2 yes, 1/2 no. Tennessee.
Madam Chairman, Tennessee passes.
Tennessee passes. Pennsylvania.
Governor, Pennsylvania, Mr. Chairman, Pennsylvania wishes to pass.
Pennsylvania passes at the moment.
Governor.
Mississippi.
Mississippi, 4 votes no, 21 votes yes.
The Mississippi vote is 21 yes, 4 no. Wisconsin.
Wisconsin passes.
Wisconsin passes for the moment. Illinois. Illinois.
Mr. Chairman, Illinois passes temporarily.
Illinois passes for the moment. Maine.
Madam Chairman, Maine votes 19 votes no, 1 vote yes.
Maine votes 1 yes, 19 no. Florida. Florida.
Florida. Attention, Florida. Vote 80.
I'm
Vote
sorry.
no.
I'm afraid your microphone isn't working well, sir. Just a minute.
A yes vote is a vote for the minority report to seat more women in the South Carolina delegation, a position the McGovern forces have supported.
Florida votes 80. Sunshine votes no. 1 vote yes.
The Florida vote is 1 vote yes, and 80 Sunshine votes no. New Hampshire.
New Hampshire casts 13.5 yes, 4.5 no.
The New Hampshire vote is 13 1/2 yes, 4 1/2 no. Arizona.
Arizona casts 15 votes yes, 10 votes no.
Arizona votes 15 yes, 10 no. North Carolina.
Hey.
I'm sorry.
North Carolina. North Carolina.
Governor Scott, would you speak right into the microphone for us?
North Carolina, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
North Carolina votes 6 in favor of the minority report, 58 against.
Okay. North Carolina's vote is 6 votes yes, 58 no. Massachusetts.
Massachusetts votes 96 aye and 5 no.
The Massachusetts vote 96 yes, 5 no. Nebraska. Nebraska.
Nebraska votes yes, 14 no, 9 pass 1.
Okay. All right, you want me to go back and do this?
Seemed to be, from the way this vote is going, that
Nebraska vote again.
the minority forces, that is the
Governor
yes
Morrison,
vote on this, the forces being
May I
supported by
please
the
have that
McGovern side,
Nebraska vote once
are
again?
moving toward a
Nebraska
victory,
votes
according to our count, on this particular vote, although some of the big states, as you know, have passed, and that could affect the vote. But an interesting factor is that from our previous CBS polls of delegations, the polls by which we believe that McGovern was right at the number of votes to go over the top with 1,509, for a majority.
96
Of
for
those states,
and
there are a
5
lot more
against.
voting for
Are
the
you
minority
missing one
report, the
person?
McGovern position, than we had indicated earlier as being McGovern supporters. My own
Massachusetts votes
quick tabulation.
97 aye and 5 no.
Okay, we have it right now. That's good.
How did you get
Georgia, Charles Kerbo, Georgia.
Indicates
State
that
of
about
Georgia.
30, 40
Georgia
votes.
passes temporarily.
40 votes above our estimate voting for the McGovern
North
forces
Dakota
here.
votes 7 yes, 6 3/10 no, 7/10 passes. That'll throw them. That'll throw them. This kind of fraction.
I better do it that way.
Sure does.
3/10 and 7/10? Yeah.
May I please check this so that we'll be right on it? You're voting, North Dakota, you're voting 7 votes for, 6 3/10 against.
Another reminder, the vote
and
for is
7/10
for the minority
abstaining.
report to
Yes.
seat more women in
Okay,
the South
that's
Carolina
for the record.
delegation,
Now we're all
a
squared away.
position on which the McGovern forces took a position, a stand.
Maryland
They are
votes
for that
24
report, the minority
yes,
report.
29 no.
It's pretty hard to hear, you know it? 20. The Maryland vote, 24 yes, 29 no. New Jersey.
New Jersey passes temporarily.
New Jersey passes temporarily. Vermont. Vermont. Ralph Major.
Vermont is over here. Vermont votes 11.5 ayes, 1/2 no.
The Vermont vote is 11.5 yes, 1/2 no.
Correct.
Nevada. Nevada?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Nevada cast 5 3/4 votes for the minority report, 5 1/4 against the minority report.
The Nevada vote is 5 3/4 for, 5 1/4 against.
Correct.
Michigan. Michigan.
Michigan passes.
Michigan passes for the moment. Iowa.
The state of Iowa votes 21 aye, 25 nay.
The Iowa vote is 21 yes, 25 no. Colorado.
Colorado casts 26 aye, 10 no.
The Colorado vote is 26 yes, 10 no. Alabama.
Alabama votes 36 no and 1 yes.
The Alabama vote, 1 yes, 36 no. Alaska.
Alaska would like to pass temporarily.
Alaska passes. Hawaii.
Madam Chairman, Hawaii votes 2 yes, 15 noes.
The Hawaii vote is 2 yes, 15 no. Washington.
Washington, 52 no.
The Washington
That's
vote.
a delegation that is
52
solidly
no.
for Senator Jackson
Minnesota.
of Washington.
Minnesota votes 56 yes, 8 no.
The Minnesota vote.
That's quite a big
56
pickup in
yes, 8 no.
apparent McGovern strength there.
Louisiana.
Almost 30 votes.
Louisiana votes
35,
25
37
aye, 19 no.
25, the Louisiana vote 25 yes, 19 no. Idaho.
Idaho votes
12 and a half votes yes, 4 1/2 votes no.
The Idaho vote, 12 and a half yes, 4 1/2 no. Montana.
Montana votes 14 votes aye, 3 votes nay.
The Montana vote, 14 yes, 3 no. Connecticut.
Connecticut passes.
Connecticut passes. The District of Columbia.
The District of Columbia votes 11 3/4 yes, 3 1/4 no.
The District of Columbia vote 11 3/4 yes, 3 1/4
CBS
no.
News coverage of the Democratic National
Virgin
Convention
Islands.
in a moment.
The Virgin Islands votes 1 yes and 2 no.
If your son or daughter is traveling overseas, they don't need another lecture on drugs. They need facts. Because a lot of young people think the drug laws in foreign countries are not as strictly enforced as the drug laws here. Well, that's wrong. In Mexico, possession can get you a 2 to 9 year sentence. In the United Kingdom, 5 to 7 years. In foreign countries, their drug laws are a whole lot tougher than ours.
The South Carolina vote goes on, and you can, on our tabulated board now, it shows 802 and a fraction votes for the South Carolina minority report, 658 and a fraction against. A lot of states are passing on their votes, the larger states, and we'll get a rundown on that as they come back to them when Mrs. Bush, the Secretary of the Convention, gets to those
Madam Chairman,
counts.
Oklahoma votes 27 votes no, 11 votes yes, and 1 pass.
The Oklahoma vote, 27 yes, 11 no, and 1 pass.
That's wrong, Madam Chairman. That's 27 votes no, 11 votes yes, and 1 vote pass.
I thank you very much. I'm sorry, I did not mean to do that to you. The Oklahoma vote is 11 yes, 27 no, and 1 passing. The clerk will now call the roll of those states which failed to respond to the first roll call. Ohio. Frank, your mic is...
Ohio still must pass because our tally is not quite complete. There'll be a few minutes.
Oh. What happened? I didn't... Did they pass?
I think that Mrs. Bush is confused because she passed over California in the second
California,
round.
I apologize. I forgot to put a green mark by your delegation when I went through the first roll call. Senator Brown? You ready to vote?
Miles, am I ready?
The problem in the California delegation, of course, is that 120 of the delegates are for McGovern, 106 of them for Humphrey,
You
the
ready?
others scattered among other candidates until they get their credentials committee settled.
California is casting the vote for California, so let's listen. It's still not on.
No.
The mic isn't on. Senator Brown's mic isn't on.
They've got a very complicated control panel up there at the rostrum to turn on and off these
not on.
microphones.
Now it is. Come on, come on. Madam Chairman, Willie Brown, co-chairperson of the California delegation, cast 120 votes yes, 151 votes no.
So the delegation split exactly along the McGovern, anti-McGovern line there, 120 pro-McGovern votes,
California
151 against.
120 votes yes.
Reminding you, a yes vote is for the minority report on South Carolina to seat more women on that delegation, and it's a position being supported by the McGovern
Ohio,
forces.
are you ready yet?
1 minute. Ohio We are still trying to get our tally completed, and it's just impossible to complete it yet. We will need a few minutes yet.
We will come back to
Thank you.
Texas.
Madam Chairman, Texas votes 34 votes aye, 96 votes no.
That's exactly along the lines of the earlier
The Texas vote, 36,
CBS estimate of
34
strength in Texas,
yes,
34 for McGovern,
96
no or undecided. There were 16
Virginia.
uncommitted there that are going anti-McGovern in this case.
Virginia.
Madam Chairman, Virginia votes 32 yes, 21 no.
The Virginia vote, 32 yes, 21 no.
That would seem to be a pickup of 10 votes for the pro-McGovern forces of Virginia.
Madam Chairman, Arkansas cast 14 votes no, 13 votes yes.
The Arkansas vote, 13
That's a vote
yes,
that's pledged
14 no.
to Wilbur
Tennessee.
Mills on the presidential race. They almost split evenly between
Tennessee.
McGovern and anti-McGovern on that.
Tennessee votes 27 no, 22 yes.
That's a state that is
Tennessee vote, 22 yes,
bound with 41 of its votes
27 no.
for Wallace, and it shows that it
Pennsylvania.
almost splits between pro-McGovern and anti-McGovern forces.
Mr. Chairman, Pennsylvania still passes.
Okay, we'll come back. Wisconsin. Wisconsin.
Wisconsin votes 55 yes, 12 no.
The Wisconsin vote, 55
That's about the way
yes,
our CBS
12
estimate
no.
would have had that one go.
Illinois.
Madam Chairwoman, Illinois votes 79 yes, 90 no, and 1 pass.
And that's about what would have been calculated there.
Vote,
Perhaps 4 more votes
yes,
for McGovern than
90
had been calculated
no,
earlier.
and 1
This
pass.
is all assuming, of course, that these votes are split definitely along a pro-McGovern, anti-McGovern
Georgia.
line, which isn't necessarily the case in every state. Some may be voting their principles here rather than the candidates.
Votes yes, 47 1/2 votes no.
That would
The
seem to be a
Georgia
drop
vote,
of 1.5 votes in
5
McGovern's
1/2
strength in
yes,
Georgia.
47 1/2 no. New Jersey.
29 no, New Jersey 29 no, 79 yes, 1 abstention.
The New Jersey vote, 79 yes, 29 no, with
29.
29. That's 79 yes, 29 no, and 1 passing. Michigan.
Michigan
Pick up
cast
a 4 McGovern
51
votes
votes yes, 81 votes no.
The Michigan vote, 51 votes yes, 81 votes no. Alaska.
Alaska votes 6 3/4 yes, 3 1/4 no.
The Alaska vote, 6 3/4 yes, 3 1/4 no.
In that Michigan vote, the indication that Leonard Woodcock, the United Auto Workers,
Connecticut.
and his pro-McGovern people
Connecticut
rounded up a
passes.
few extra votes for McGovern in
Connecticut
Michigan.
passes.
He won 38 in the primary there, but they got
Oregon.
51 on this particular vote. So 13 extra votes for him there.
Oregon.
Yes.
If indeed this is a test.
Votes 23 yes, 11 no.
The Oregon vote is 23 yes, 11 no. I understand that one of the delegates, the chairman of the delegation from the District of Columbia, desires to be recognized. Reverend Fauntleroy?
The District of Columbia, correction, vote 12 yes, 3 no. On the
change in the vote of the District of Columbia is, the vote is now 12 votes for and 3 no.
That's right. Correct.
How's that, Jim? Is the great state of Ohio ready?
They're just adding it up. I'll be ready in just a very few, maybe a minute.
This vote is running very close
How about
to our
Pennsylvania?
CBS
Are you
News
ready?
estimate of what the vote will be on the California challenge.
Pennsylvania votes 55 and 1/2 votes yes, 126 votes no. Now,
They're missing, is it a half they're missing? Do I ask about it? There's one, I think there's 1/2 missing, or did you vote 126? No. Pennsylvania, would you repeat that vote?
we had a have vote not voting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Connecticut.
Connecticut, 8 aye, 42 no.
You're missing one there.
One absent.
One absent. Okay. Okay, Ohio.
Ohio's having a little trouble getting together down there, getting their vote registered. Pennsylvania's vote was right along our CBS News estimate guidelines. 1 vote extra for George McGovern. The Pennsylvania delegation, we figure 55 of the Pennsylvania delegates are committed to McGovern and 1 leaning, and that's a total of 55. That's what the vote on in favor of the South Carolina Minority Report was.
I'll give you just a little bit more time, so because
But it also indicates that the Humphrey pro-labor forces of Pennsylvania are holding solid with their 126.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir?
The 1 vote that passed in Oklahoma has now voted no, so our total will reflect 11 yes votes, 28 no votes.
At the moment, the Oklahoma vote is 11 yes, 28 no. I have another note that the state of Wisconsin would like to be recognized.
That 1,496 and a half, incidentally, there needed to win. Should have explained this to you earlier, I suppose. Is not counting
Wisconsin?
the 23 votes of the South Carolina delegates that are being challenged. Votes that are being challenged cannot be cast in their own challenges.